We're officially in the heart of the Duke basketball offseason. Jon Scheyer has had some interesting comments about his roster construction and some other news and notes around the Duke athletics department. This is Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, and it's so great to have you here with us on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop for everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. Remember, we're now in off-season mode here within the Locked On Podcast Network. Amongst our college channels, we're bumping it back from 5 shows a week to 3, but still plenty of good content coming for you over these next few weeks. Just kind of slimming it down in the number of days that we're putting new episodes out there for you. Today, my good friend Kevin Connelly is the site expert for Ball Durham. He's going to be back with us as we discuss everything that's going to take place over the course of this offseason. Jon Scheyer has had some interesting comments as of late, so we'll dive into those as well. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Also, make sure that you follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. And then a special shout out to our everydayers who want to make this show a part of their routine each and every day. You guys are the absolute best. If you watch us on YouTube, comment down below that you're an everydayer, and I can give shout outs from time to time. I love doing that. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really trying to grow that YouTube audience. So without further ado, let's bring him on in. Here is our good pal, Kevin Connelly. And Kevin, we got to get adjusted now, man. We're in the heart of the offseason in college athletics. So not as much content and storylines taking place out there, but we're going to do the best we can.
Yeah, it's that time of year, right? You got the spring sports winding down. You're still a little bit a ways from fall sports and football season, but you know, it's Duke basketball. What's the old saying? Duke basketball never stops. So it doesn't matter what's going on with this program. We always find something to talk about. There's always something interesting going on. K Academy wrapping up last weekend. So Jon Scheyer, you mentioned his comments. So we'll find a way to make this one work.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do, and it's what the people want. So let's talk about this Duke basketball team that people so adore and love, you and I included amongst them, and we'll get to that in just a moment. You did mention kind of the spring sports season coming to a close. So quickly, we can update folks and let them know that both softball and baseball officially are done with competition. Softball bowing out from the Women's College World Series after losses to Oklahoma and Alabama. And then it was baseball that played Oklahoma in the Norman Regional. Got a win, but unfortunately that was not enough to get out of that regional. Their season comes to a close as well after winning the ACC baseball tournament. Really good years for both of their programs. Just unfortunately, there's only one team that can win it all each and every season, and it will not be the team from Durham.
Yeah, I think when you look at softball, you really tip your cap. An awesome year, 7th year in the program's existence, and you make it to the Women's College World Series. Kind of got thrown a right hook early, facing Oklahoma, one of the best programs in the country.
They've won 3 straight national championships, Kevin.
Yeah, and they kind of poured it on Duke in that first game, and then really tough loss against Alabama in that elimination game, back and forth, tight contest, and Duke losing it. And then you look at baseball, I think you have that bittersweet taste in your mouth with the baseball season ending. Obviously, you're the ACC tournament champions. You had a great year. You thought you were going to be hosting one of these regionals. The bracket doesn't fall in your way. And then you go down to Oklahoma, you play UConn, a team that bowed out of the Big East tournament early, going 0-2. People were wondering if they were going to get in or not. And then you lose the first game. And when you lose that first game of a baseball regional, it's so difficult to try and win it. But for Duke, they bounced back in game 2. You beat Oral Roberts. And then you have to play Oklahoma, who lost to UConn in the 1-0 game, where both teams had a 1-0 record. And then they're playing Duke in an elimination game on their home field. And they go up 4-1. Duke hits a homer in the 8th, makes it 4-3, and then they go quietly in the 9th inning, 1-2-3, and they end their inning, end their season, I should say, And then UConn eventually beats Oklahoma in the Game 7 winner-take-all. I guess that was Monday night.
Yep.
To advance to Super Regionals, and they'll play Florida State. So felt like a lot of people thought this was going to be the Duke baseball team that gets over the hump and wins a Super Regional and gets to Omaha and goes to the College World Series, but wasn't in the cards this year. So, yeah, bittersweet ending for the baseball team. Obviously, a great season, winning the ACC tournament, but falling short in regional. So, no doubt that Chris Pollard and this squad will be back next year and trying to make some noise and getting over that hump to get back to Omaha.
Yeah, you got to be really pleased with what took place for both of those spring sports this season. We certainly were, and we'll see how they rebound going into this next season. But from the Duke basketball perspective, we talk a lot about this program, all the news that's constantly being put out there once this past season came to a close. We're watching roster updates like crazy. We're trying to see landing spots for all of these former Blue Devils, and then who transfers into the program. Now the roster is kind of set. One scholarship remains. We'll see if a walk-on earns the right to that scholarship. But Duke's already released all the jersey numbers for players a part of the team. And we saw that Neil Bekovich and Stanley Borden, Spencer Hubbard are names back on the team for this upcoming season. So maybe one of those guys earns the final scholarship. But at large, what did you think of this roster now that it's been put together, Kevin?
I think it's pretty solid. I mean, they have good guard play. We've talked about that throughout the offseason with Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. The big star goes around Cooper Flagg. And then I think they have a lot of front court depth. When you look at Kaman Malawak, Patton Ngaba, you go a little bit deeper down the roster. Could Isaiah Evans play the 4? Malik Brown, the transfer from Syracuse. Mason Gillis, the transfer from Purdue. So I think there's a lot of good front court depth on this team. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together. It was certainly cool to see everybody except Patton Ngaba on campus over the weekend for the K Academy. Obviously, Big Pat playing with Team USA Under-18 team in Buenos Aires that started on Monday, that tournament. So that's the only reason why he wasn't in Durham this past weekend. And obviously, it was great to see Common at Duke before he heads off to the Paris Olympics with Team South Sudan later this summer. So guys got a chance to have a couple of runs together, a couple of workouts together, and start building that team chemistry on and off the court this weekend. So always good when you see the squad coming back down for the K Academy.
The roster is set. A couple of players bid farewell to Duke basketball, and now we move forward and gear up for the 2024-2025 college basketball season. Let's take a quick timeout and continue our conversation when we return here on this episode today of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Tomorrow, Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Get ready as prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. That's right. We're talking about all the great things that you can experience via Gametime, not only in the NBA, but other sports like Major League Baseball right now, concerts and comedy shows taking place as well. Save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets thanks to Gametime. They've got zone deals that you can save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. Seat views on the app give you a panoramic view from the seat before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Bring back in Kevin Connelly here, the site expert from Ball Durham, who's with us on the program today. And Kevin, we're taking a look at the Duke basketball team. I mentioned new players coming in and joining the fold. That means that several players had to leave. Jon Scheyer had some interesting comments that we'll get to in just a moment. But your thoughts when you think about the roster turnover that's taken place for Duke basketball, players leaving, just your takeaway on that we've been discussing the last few weeks.
Well, when you see 10 players leave a program in one offseason, I think that's startling, no matter what your thoughts were on those players or the roster construction or how they fit with this potential freshman class incoming. I think when you see 10 players leave a program in one offseason, it's going to knock you back a little bit. But then you look a little bit deeper into it. All right, you have 2 guys going to the NBA, Kyle Filipowski and Jared McCain. Ryan Young graduates, and then 7 guys move on and enter the transfer portal. So I think that was a little surprising. But when you dive deeper beyond just those numbers of guys leaving, and you listen to Jon Scheyer's comments and what he said over this last week about the roster, it starts to make sense, especially with what a lot of probably fans had in their minds about the guys on the roster, those who could have come back and ultimately did not, and how they would have fit or not fit with this current team.
All right, so players transferring away from Duke basketball. To catch people up to speed, all 7 players that left via the transfer portal have made their decisions as to where they will play. To run through those quickly, we've got Jeremy Roach taking his grad year at Baylor. He was a part of K Academy for a little bit, so good to see him still a part of the program. I know that that's something people wanted to point out. Jalen Blakes was the last guy to make his decision. We now know that he's going to go play at Stanford, another great academic institution, after earning your degree in 3 years from Duke. Jalen Blakes from New Jersey makes the cross-country trek now to play at Stanford for his final season, who's now in the ACC. So an ACC transfer right there. Blakes at Stanford, Kevin.
Yeah, that was the most recent one. Now it becomes 4 players that were transferring out of the Duke basketball program that are going to play in the ACC next year. And Jalen Blakes is one of them that is going to come back to Cameron. Stanford making the cross-country trip to Durham next season. Date not released yet. ACC regular season dates have not been publicized, but Jalen Blakes is going to come back to Cameron. And you look at a Jaden Schutt who goes to Virginia Tech, TJ Power who goes to Virginia, and Christian Reeves going to Clemson. Only 2 of the 4 come back to Cameron. It's Jaden Schutt who comes back to Cameron with Virginia Tech, and obviously Jalen Blakes who comes back to Stanford. Duke only plays Virginia and Clemson once in the regular season, and they go on the road for both those games. So you're going to see a couple of former Blue Devils on the opposite side and opposing jerseys next year.
It's going to be fun. And then the 7th transfer to discuss, Mark Mitchell, started for Duke for 2 seasons. He's made the transfer to Missouri. He will compete in the SEC this upcoming season. Hey, the ACC-SEC Challenge pairings have not been announced. Duke's not going to be paired with a school like Missouri, but that would have been fun thought to have Mark Mitchell coming back with the Mizzou Tigers.
Yeah, although, 2 years ago, not this past season, the year before, they were in the NCAA tournament, and then last year they were one of the worst in college basketball. You could probably make the argument that they were one of the 3 worst power conference teams in the country. So hopefully Mark Mitchell can go and elevate that program a little bit. But yeah, it would be a major surprise to everybody if Duke gets paired with Missouri in the ACC-SEC Challenge. And you never say never, but JJ, I'm going to agree with your sentiment. They're not going to be paired with them.
It's not going to happen. So there are your 7 transfers right there. Jeremy Roach to Baylor, Jalen Blakes to Stanford, TJ Power to Virginia, Jaden Schutt to Virginia Tech, Christian Reeves heads to Clemson, Mark Mitchell over to Missouri. I think I got everybody there. Sean Stewart heading to Ohio State. That would be the other one in the fold as well. So as we take a look at some of those comments made by Jon Scheyer, again, he was on the Brotherhood podcast from Duke basketball. We're used to seeing Ryan Young as the host for the first 23 episodes of the thing, but this time it was Jay Billis, another member of the Brotherhood, wearing Duke gear that sat down with the head coach. And then also a great article written in the Raleigh News and Observer by Steve Wiseman, who's appeared on the show a number of different times, talking about Coach Scheyer's comments in regards to next year's roster. And look, guys are not going to be guaranteed anything. You got to come in, earn it, and compete day to day, right? That's kind of the big takeaway.
Yeah, that was the big takeaway. Listening to like that, it's really in the first half of that Brotherhood podcast with Jay Billis. And he starts off and he's talking about using the motivation of winning the ACC championship last year and not following up in the NCAA tournament, losing in the second round. And then this year, it's still that motivation. All right, you lose in your first game in the ACC tournament, you make a run to the Elite Eight, but you're still looking for that motivation to get you over the hump and trying to compete and be the best. So like that's kind of the opening part of it. And then he gets into a little bit about the transfer portal and recruiting freshmen and his new philosophy. And really, he said last offseason, and he's reflecting back on it now, they didn't expect as many guys to stay that did. And that's obviously the biggest reason why they didn't use the transfer portal in any capacity with guys leaving or bringing guys in. And he's talking about, everyone says you have to get old. Old teams win. And yeah, that's a good thing, but those old guys have to have talent too. And he said things started right away after they lost to NC State, because if you remember, it was March 31st. It was on a Sunday night, and they get back to campus that night. And really the next day is a Monday morning. It's April 1st, and the transfer portal doesn't sleep. It was already up and going and running, and they jumped right into it then. And he said they started having conversations with players on the team as soon as they got back that next day. And he said that they were open and honest. And the players had to be open and honest with them. And Jon Scheyer said he and the coaching staff did not promise anybody anything. Nobody got promised a starting spot. Nobody got promised a certain amount of shots or minutes that they're going to get in an upcoming game this year. And it was up to the player to make a decision if they wanted to come back and try and compete, or did they want to try to go to the transfer portal and get guaranteed something in terms of playing time or amount of shots or minutes that they're going to get in a game. And Jon Scheyer said if the player wanted to come back, they would have taken them. And obviously, we just highlighted 7 of them go into the transfer portal, 2 go to the NBA draft, and then Ryan Young graduates with the returners of Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. So, it was pretty interesting. He also talked about kind of his recruiting philosophy going forward. And he said you're not really going to see these giant 6-man freshman classes anymore. He said it's probably going to be closer to 4, 3, 2 guys, and they're going to focus the rest of their attention out on the transfer portal. He said probably the max you're going to see going forward is a 5-man recruiting class. So obviously Duke has a handful of guys coming in this year in their freshman class, but seems like that's going to change and get smaller going forward. And you kind of see it with the way they're offering players in the 2025 class, right? Did I get that right? Are we in the upcoming class is 2025? Obviously Cameron Boozer, Caden Boozer, those are 2 guys that are big on the on their recruiting wish list. You look at the number 1 player in the class, and AJ Vitanza, he is number 1 on the board in just about everybody's prospect rankings, jumping over Cameron Boozer, who held that number 1 spot before AJ transferred it or reclassified in. So it is going to be interesting to see how Duke works their freshman classes going forward, because going back to really that 2012, 2013 area, Duke has had a top 5 recruiting class just about every single year under Mike Krzyzewski, and now in the transition to Jon Scheyer as well. So certainly going to be interesting to see how this team uses their high school recruiting philosophy going forward compared to those in the transfer portal.
Yeah, you got to love it. And look, Jon Scheyer has always been honest, and I think he'll continue to do that in this spot as the Duke basketball head coach. All right, let's take one more break, and then we'll start to wrap up our conversation today with our pal Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Ball Durham, when we return here in just a moment. All right, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today. Go check it out. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's bring him back in. It is Kevin Connelly. He is the site expert from Ball Durham. And Kevin, I'll give you a moment now, if you will, to promote your work and everything that you've got going on at the website.
We're covering everything in terms of Duke athletics and specifically Duke basketball, even in these summer months. Talked about Pacton Ngaba playing for Team USA, U18 team, that tournament going on this week. We're covering all these comments Jon Scheyer made throughout this week about this roster and a couple of the guys that left and what they were looking for going forward, as we just discussed, in their prospects and recruits. And then obviously it's going to be a big couple of weeks for this Duke basketball program. They are taking center stage in the NBA Finals with the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. So you could read everything that we have over at balldurham.com. You could follow us on social media at ball_Durham.
Yeah, we'll get to the NBA Finals here in just a moment to kind of wrap up our conversation today. Kevin, we just saw K Academy come and go, and it was an opportunity for many players of the Brotherhood, past, present, some people put out their future, that were a part of the mix, and really excited to see guys back on campus, to see the smiles on their face, to see players like Jeremy Roach and Jalen Blakes, who will play college basketball elsewhere this upcoming season, but back for the week to see some other members of the Brotherhood. Nolan Smith was another great face to see there in Durham throughout the course of the week. So really good stuff there. And then there's a lot of chatter right now, Kevin, about a great part of K Academy is the opportunity for these guys to play pickup. Let's remember, these guys are obsessed with the game of basketball. So while Duke men's basketball wants to promote the heck out of the K Academy participants and what they're doing each and every day, the players that are there want to get some runs in, and that includes guys that are currently in the NBA. And Kevin, I've been reading, I've been listening to, and a lot of people, it's no secret, apparently this Cooper Flag guy is holding his own against everybody. Paulo Banchero and some of the newest NBA players, Mark Williams included as well. I mean, wow, we should be excited about this Flag guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to do a lot of big things at Duke for his only season. I don't know if I'm breaking any news here, but he's only going to be there for 1 year. When from now until next, hopefully late April, is all you're going to see Cooper Flag in Durham before he plays for whoever has the number one pick in the NBA draft next season. So, yeah, it's great to see. And I think one thing that's really important, and obviously it seemed like they started to build some type of relationship, Mark Williams and Kamen Malawak. Saw pictures of them, videos of them talking, hanging out during the K Academy. I think people aren't really necessarily highlighting how important Kamen's going to be for this team next season. I think a lot of people are interested in watching him play at the Olympic level this summer in the Paris Olympics just to see what he could do, because in the BAL, as they call it, I think it's the Basketball African League. I think that's what it stands for. You see the stats, you see some of the highlights, but you're not really watching the full game. You're just seeing these clips on social media. I think at the Olympics, people are actually going to sit down and watch the Olympics. Obviously, we don't know what pool Team South Sudan is going to be. Maybe Kamen gets to play against Team USA, and we'll see how he gets to do against those players. But in the Olympics, it is another level. Players are going to rise to the occasion. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he performs in that, and also the relationships he builds with a guy like Mark Williams, who can obviously Mark struggled his freshman year before really taking off his sophomore year. And it seems like Kamen's only going to be at Duke for one season because he is a projected top 3 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. So all the knowledge he can get of getting accustomed to Durham and playing in North Carolina and playing at Duke very quickly is all the better for him.
All right, so Kevin, as we transition now to the NBA and where Cooper Flag and Kamen Malawak will be playing one day, a part of the NBA. We've got the finals coming up. They start tomorrow between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. You've got a story up at balldurham.com that I really want people to go check out and read, talking about the Blue Devils have their fingerprints all over the NBA finals. Not only players on the court, they've got coaches, they've got broadcasters that are going to be a part of the fun for the NBA finals. Kind of give us an overview.
Yeah, so I think you look first on the court, Derek Lively and Kyrie Irving for the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, Jason Tatum for the Boston Celtics. Emile Jefferson is an assistant coach with the Boston Celtics. And you mentioned the TV broadcast. Well, part of the top NBA broadcasting team for ESPN and ABC is JJ Redick. So no matter where you look in this NBA Finals, the Duke Blue Devils are going to be involved in some way. A Duke Blue Devil, I guess I should say at least 2 Duke Blue Devils are going to be winning NBA championships, whether it be Tatum and Jefferson or Lively and Irving. It's going to be on all the TVs in the restaurants and establishments down in Durham. And I know Duke fans across the country are going to be locked in on the NBA Finals too, because, I mean, Kyrie Irving really changing his image. I think obviously when you look back at the COVID times and everything, and even with his time in Boston, kind of really got this negative cloud that followed him throughout the rest of his career, going from Boston to Brooklyn. And that's kind of vanished here in Dallas. It's almost like he started a brand new career with a clean slate. And Derek Lively, I mean, really just an incredibly sad but awesome story, losing his mother a couple of weeks ago. And he goes 16 for 16 from the field in the Western Conference Finals. Really struggled to adjust himself early in his college career at Duke to the level of play on the court, went through some injuries, and then really found his defensive game going forward late in the year. And you saw that in the NCAA tournament, and it's carried over here to the NBA. And then you look at the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum, at least in my opinion, I don't know if you share this as well and your viewers, JJ, gets a ton of criticism for no reason whatsoever.
Way too much.
Yep. I mean, you look at this guy's numbers, and I think for the success he had as young as he did in his first couple of years in the NBA, going to several conference finals and NBA finals, but not winning it, it's like the target's been put on his back. And people like want him to be a LeBron James or somebody like that. And I mean, you look at the numbers he consistently puts up, it's double-doubles. He nearly had a triple-double in the closeout game of the Eastern Conference Finals. So maybe if he's able to get that first NBA championship, people will finally pull off of him a little bit and recognize him as one of the 5 to 10 best players the NBA has and a bona fide superstar. So a ton of interesting storylines when you look at players in this NBA Finals that are obviously tied to Duke.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, look, you've 3 straight years, first team All-NBA for Jason Tatum. Only 5 guys get that honor. Therefore, one of the 5 best in the league. And yet the criticism, you would think that this guy is terrible at what he does and that sort of thing. So to kind of put you on the spot here, Kevin, it looks like Boston opens up as the betting favorite to win this series. As we have gotten closer and closer to tip-off, however, Dallas is kind of surging in those odds as well. I still lean Boston. I think Porzingis coming back is an X factor there for what the Celtics want to do. Those guards and Holiday and White are absolutely outstanding. And I think Tatum's going to silence the critics and get the job done. I think I would still lean Boston. Where do you sit?
I'm going to go Boston as well. I think it's going to be an awesome series. I think it's going to go 7. I think Boston wins game 7 on their home floor. And I'm also going to throw in a little bonus prediction. He didn't win Most Valuable Player in the Eastern Conference Finals. It was Jaylen Brown who won that, although it easily could have gone to Jason Tatum. I think Boston wins in 7, and Jason Tatum is your NBA Finals MVP.
There you go. We'll see it all start to play out tomorrow night on ABC. And we'll have, of course, reports at balldurham.com as Kevin's keeping everybody up to date over there. Follow him on X at Kevin Connelly24 as well. It's great to see you, man. It'll be less frequent conversations over the course of the summer, but nonetheless, all the content's amazing. So thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate it, JJ. Thanks.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked on Blue Devils. All right, that's going to do it for our show here today. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.